Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Storm, and today we are going to talk about for loops. I love for loops, they're so great. Now, I know this is a nerdy thing to really get into and really get excited about, but don't judge me, okay? This is my life. This is what I enjoy. All right, let me live my truth. All right, for loops are great. Let me show you why. Okay, so a for loop is just like a while loop or a do while loop, except we set all the conditions in the top of the loop. For example, let's say I wanted to create an integer and call it n, and I will set that equal to nothing. Let's just leave it alone for now. Um, Actually, you know what? We don't even need to create the variable first. Let's just go right into the for loop. Yeah, let's do it that way. So for is the keyword for a for loop. Obviously, right? It's a for loop, and it's not for like FOUR, it's FOR, because we're going to basically the logic of this loop is for a specific amount of iterations we are going to run this loop, right? So for, and then the first section in this for loop is going to be the starting variable. So for int I equals 0. So we're basically setting a starting variable. That's our starting point right there. And then we want a semicolon because the second thing we need is the condition, right? So we're going to say I less than 10, then another semicolon, because the third thing we want is the increase of that variable, right? This is actually allowing us to build loops that are almost immune from being infinite loops, right? Not entirely, because if we set our conditions wrong, so I can say I plus plus. So basically the logic here is that we're going to set a new variable called I. We're going to set it equal to 0. And then while I is less than 10, then we'll run the code. And then every iteration of the loop, we're going to increase I by 1, right? That's a very simple way of writing a loop. And then here, I'm just going to write, console.write line. Oh, I don't even know what I was trying to spell there. Line. And we're going to say I is, plus I plus. Now notice I don't have to have an increase down here. I don't have to have a break. I don't have to have anything. This is a very condensed way of writing a loop. And if I hit, oh, you know what? I'm going to do the readme or the read line. Console.read line. There we go. Now when I run this loop, I should get I is 0 through 9, which is exactly what we're looking for, right? That's a lot fewer lines than we would use for a while loop or a do while loop. It's a much more condensed way of writing loops, and this is why I like them so much. And it really, when I learned for loops, it really helped me to understand what loops were doing. So let's do a little bit more. Let's expand this a little bit. Let's say 16. Yeah, let's go to 16, and then in here we can have that, and then what we can do is if I equals 12, let's say once we hit 12, we're going to break, because break statements work perfectly well inside of a for loop as well. So we're going to print I is whatever onto the screen, and then once I is 12, we're going to break out of the loop. So let's run that and see if that works. And it does. Once we get to 12, we break out. Even though we're allowing the loop to go all the way to 16, we're breaking out early because we've hit 12. Perfect. Okay, that works exactly the way we want. Alrighty, let's talk about continue. Continue. Now we use break to break out of the loop completely, but what if we wanted to just, I don't know, skip over a certain iteration, right? So we could do this. Let's put our console statement down here below the if, because it kind of works better for this example. Put it right there. And then we'll still go to 16, but let's use a modulus operator to divide, to basically check to see modulus 2 equals 1. Okay, and instead of break, we're going to say continue. All right, now think in your mind what you think's going to look, what do you think's going to be put on the screen whenever we do this? Let's give this a shot. Let's see what happens. Okay. Okay. So what happened there? What did you see? Well, I see all of the odd numbers taken out of our out of our string of whatever, out of our list. We have 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, right? We've taken all the odd numbers out because we're just skipping each number that's an odd. We just say, hey, if I modulus 2 equals 1, meaning if it's an odd number, we're just going to skip that. We're not going to run this next line of code, which is the statement where we print the number onto the screen. We can even do this with even numbers too. All we have to do is change this modulus value to 0 and then run the code. And now we get all the odd numbers onto our screen, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, right? So there's just loops. You can do it like really crazy cool things with loops. You just have to understand how to use them properly and how to use continue and break. And again, some loops are better at things than others. For example, a for loop is very great for looping through an entire array. So let's create an array. And nope, nope. Let's say, I don't know, games. And then inside the array, we'll put Assassin's Creed. Oh, it's a string array, so it needs to be a string. Creed and Fallout and I don't know, Red Dead Redemption, right? And then let's see. I'm just thinking of games that I'm really excited to play coming up, and we'll say Mario Party. I've got video games on the brain currently. So we've created an array with 4 different games. Then what we can do is we can set I equal to 0 while I is less than or equal to games dot length. Then we're going to loop through, and let's get rid of this continue. And we can say console write line games, and then whatever the index of I would be. So basically what we're saying is I want to print each value, each index in this array onto my screen. So let's run that and see if that works. Oh, why did it go away so fast? Did I type something on accident? Oh, I see why. It broke because it got it went too far. It was index out of. All right. So because I put that equals there, it went too far. It went one index too far and it broke my program. All right, there we go. So we have Assassin's Creed, Fallout, Red Dead Redemption, Mario Party, right? So I can iterate instead of typing out each individual console write line and looking for each individual index. Instead of writing this out 4 times, I can just create a for loop that will loop through each iteration of the array and print what I'm looking for on the screen, which is incredibly helpful, right? So when we're using arrays or lists or things like that where we have a whole set of data inside of one data type, we can loop through that using a for loop to put the whole thing on the screen. Right, and we can even do things like we can use the modulus thing to only put the even ones on there. I mean, I'm just getting crazy at this point, but we can say if I modulus 2 equals 0, then we continue, right? And then it'll only put the even ones on my screen, right? Fallout and Mario Party, which that doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem right because it's like, well, but Fallout is index 1 and Mario Party is in index 3, so how did that work? But think about it, we're going off not the index number, but the value of I, right? So anywho, so that's how you can iterate through arrays using a for loop. For loops, again, they're my favorite because they're very, very condensed, and I use them all the time. I use them probably more than I should. Sometimes it's easier to use a while loop or a do while loop, but I use for loops just because they're my favorite. I like them a lot. And hopefully you'll get to understand them and like them as well as I do. Now, next week, we're going to move on to something else. We're not going to be worrying about loops too much anymore. We're going to actually move on to something different. So if you like loops, great. If you don't like loops, then we get to move on to something new. That's it for me. I will see you next time. Thank you for paying attention.